What's this? A letter for me.
Welcome to another episode of Remember the Great Sports Through the Mail Thursdays. Today I'm just going to share two autographs that I recently got back in the mail, but when I show these two to you, you're going to be shocked. These are great Hall of Fame quarterbacks, and I said yes, Hall of Fame, and they have such great stories that I feel that I couldn't put three people in this episode because their stories are going to be long enough. So, with the Super Bowl this week, I thought I'd share these recent returns because these are two of the greatest quarterbacks to ever play in football. Unfortunately, one never did go to the Super Bowl or win a Super Bowl, but the other one was on one of the most legendary Super Bowl teams in the history of Super Bowls. And we'll get to him in a second, so we'll start with the first one. And the first one is postmarked from Washington, and it is former Houston Oiler great Warren Moon on one of two. I actually sent him two cards just to see what would happen. Unfortunately, he returned just one signed, which is fine. I did put some money in the envelope, if I recall. It was a very nominal fee, $5 or $10. I don't remember what. But obviously, it's $5 or $10 per autograph, not $5 or $10 for a couple autographs. So, very happy to get Mr. Moon back. I had never gotten Mr. Moon before in my life. This, I'll zoom in on the card a little bit better here. This card literally was just sitting in a box out in my garage. You know, there's nothing special about it. It's a, mid-career card of Mr. Moon, out of a top set, which is, obviously a cheap set to have. So, let me tell you about Warren Moon and his career in not just the NFL, but also the CFL as well. Warren Moon grew up in Los Angeles, California, and he went to high school at Alexander Hamilton High School, where he played football. He didn't actually get to play quarterback until his junior year, and in his senior season in 1973, the team that he quarterbacked reached the All-City playoffs. After he graduated from high school, he attended West Los Angeles College as a freshman, and he set a record in 1974 with all the passing quarterback records at that college. The offensive coordinator at the University of Washington took notice of the rifle arm Moon at this community college and insisted that he sign Moon to be the quarterback at the University of Washington. And in his first two seasons in 75 and 76, the record was 11-11 at Washington. In 1977, however, Moon would help lead the Huskies to a Pac-8 title and eventually a Rose Bowl upset over the University of Michigan. Moon was named the MVP of the Rose Bowl, and then he waited to become a professional. Despite his collegiate success, Moon was led to believe that he would only be a late-round NFL pick and was fearful that he would have very limited opportunities as a pro. So he underestimated himself. 6 weeks before the NFL draft, Moon decided to sign with the Edmonton Eskimos of the CFL. Immediately, he joined Tom Wilkinson as a quarterback in 1978 with the Edmonton Eskimos, and he would help lead the Eskimos in 1978, 79, 80, 81, and 82 to a record-setting 5 consecutive Grey Cup victories in the CFL. Moon won the Grey Cup MVP in 1980 and 82 in the championships and became the first professional quarterback to pass for 5,000 yards in the season by reaching exactly 5,000 yards in 1982. In his final CFL season in 1983, he threw for a league record 5,648 yards, shattering his previous record, and won the CFL's MVP award. They, however, did not win the championship that year and barely made the playoffs. In his 6 years in the CFL, Moon amassed 1,369 completions, 2,382 attempts for a 50.4% completion rate, for 21,228 yards and 144 touchdowns. After that season, Moon's decision to enter the NFL touched off a bidding war for his services. Eventually, the Houston Oilers won that and were led by head coach Hugh Campbell. Campbell was there for just Moon's first season, where Moon was adjusting. However, he did throw for then franchise record of 3,338 yards in his first season in '84, but the team failed to have any success. In 1986, Jerry Glanville took over as the new head coach of the Oilers and reutilized Moon in different ways. Moon would find varying successes being quarterback for the Oilers. However, they never did get to the Super Bowl and win their Super Bowl championship. Prior to the '89 season, Moon signed a 5-year deal with the Oilers at a $10 million contract extension, which at the time made him the highest paid player in the NFL. In 1990, Moon responded after signing that contract with passing for an enormous amount of yards at 4,689. He also led the league in attempts, completions, and touchdowns, and tied Dan Marino's record for 9 300-yard games in a season. In 1992, Moon played only 11 games due to injuries, but they still managed to have a winning record. The Oilers did. In 1993, this was actually the farthest that the Oilers got under Moon. But despite having the 12-4 record, they eventually lost to the Joe Montana-led Kansas City Chiefs in a 28-20 divisional round playoff game. After that season, Moon was traded to the Minnesota Vikings after that year, where he passed for over 4,200 yards in each of his first 2 seasons with Minnesota. But missed half of the '96 season with a broken collarbone. The Vikings eventually named Brad Johnson their starting quarterback, and Moon was released from his contract. After his contract with the Vikings, Moon went back to Seattle, and he signed as a free agent in 1997 and made the Pro Bowl and was named the Pro Bowl MVP that season. He would play 2 seasons eventually for the Seahawks. After his tenure with the Seahawks, Moon signed as a free agent with the Kansas City Chiefs to play backup. He played in only 3 games in 2 years with the Chiefs and announced his retirement at age 44 in January of 2001. So, to give you some combined numbers of Warren Moon, combining his NFL and CFL stats, Moon's numbers are nearly unmatched in professional football. 5,357 completions, 9,205 attempts for a total of 70,553 yards and 435 touchdowns. Moon was named to 9 Pro Bowls throughout his career in the NFL. He was a 5-time Grey Cup champion in the CFL. As I mentioned before, he won the Rose Bowl MVP. He won the Grey Cup MVP multiple times. He was elected to the Pro Football Hall of Fame in 2006. He was also elected to the Canadian Football League Hall of Fame as well, being the first undrafted quarterback and the first African American quarterback ever honored in these elections. The Tennessee Titans, who were the former Houston Oilers, retired his number on October 1st, 2006. After his playing career, he did a couple things. He was a mentor to former Carolina Panthers quarterback Cam Newton, and he also did some broadcasting through 2017 with the Seattle Seahawks. So, just to summarize, like I said, Warren Moon's career was amazing. The guy went from not even being a starting quarterback until his junior year in high school to playing for a small community college to becoming, a force in college football, and played quarterback through his age of 44 years old in a backup role for the Chiefs. So not a bad career when it comes to playing football for Mr. Warren Moon. So we'll move on to the next one. All right, so this next one is postmarked from Florida, and when I lay this card down, this man will need very limited introduction, and it is a success from former Miami Dolphins Hall of Fame quarterback Bob Griese on his Domino's Pizza card. And if you guys remembered, I have a bunch of the Domino's Pizza cards. I've sent a few out to some viewers. I also have talked about how I enjoy collecting that set and such, and they're super cheap and dirt cheap, and they have some great quarterbacks in that set. I actually sent him 2, and he only signed the 1. I thought, maybe I'd throw the one with Marino in there too, see if he'd sign it, but he just signed 1, which is fine. I just thought I'd try and see what would happen. But let me tell you about Bob Griese and his amazing career in football. Griese was born in Evansville, Indiana, and attended high school in Evansville. Not only did he play football, but he also played American Legion baseball in Evansville. He also played basketball, because that's what you do when you grow up in Indiana. And after his time in high school, he was heavily recruited by many colleges throughout the nation, but he chose to stay in Indiana and chose to go to Purdue University and became a three-sport star while at Purdue. So a lot of people don't know about Bob Griese's career in other sports. His one season at Purdue, he actually had a 12-win, 1-loss record on the baseball diamond as a pitcher. He also played guard on the Purdue basketball team, and obviously played quarterback, but also was the kicker and the punter on the Purdue football team as well. Griese was a 2-time All-American at Purdue, finishing number 8 in the 65 Heisman Trophy race, and was the runner-up, finishing 2nd in the 66. Purdue finished 2nd in the Big Ten in 66, and he led the school's first appearance in the Rose Bowl, where they defeated USC by 1 point, 14-13. After his time at Purdue, Griese was selected by the Miami Dolphins as the 4th player in the 1967 draft, of the AFL draft. In his rookie season, he threw for over 2,000 yards and 15 touchdowns. Griese was an AFL All-Star in his first 2 years in the league with the Dolphins, and earned AFL All-Star and AFC, NFC Pro Bowl honors in 6 additional seasons throughout his career. In his first season, Griese actually started out as the backup quarterback, but due to John Stofa breaking his ankle, he moved into that role in 1967 as the starter. And from 67, 8, and 9, they were tough for the expansion season, and eventually, after the 69 season, George Wilson was fired. Owner Joe Robbie brought in Don Shula from the Colts in 1970, and suddenly their fortunes turned around. They went from 3-10 to 10-4 in that short period of time with just Don Shula. In 1971, just 2 years removed from a 3-10 record, the Dolphins made it to the Super Bowl, losing to the Dallas Cowboys. In that season, Griese was named the 1971 NFL MVP. Going into 1972, there were some expectations for the Dolphins after going to the Super Bowl in 71, and little did they know that their MVP quarterback would be injured after just 5 or 6 games, breaking his leg and dislocating his ankle. Earl Morrall would take over at quarterback and help lead the team throughout the finish of the regular season. Eventually, they would face off against the powerhouse Pittsburgh Steelers, and Griese would make an appearance in that game, helping them clinch their way to the 2nd straight Super Bowl appearance. Despite their unbeaten season, the Dolphins were still listed as the underdogs to the Washington Redskins. Sticking with the system that they had, the Dolphins moved forward and eventually would win the game 14-7, forever closing out the perfect season for the Miami Dolphins. In 1973, Griese was back to full force and led another strong Dolphins team, but they did not make it undefeated to the Super Bowl that year. They would return to the Super Bowl and defeat the Minnesota Vikings for back-to-back Super Bowl championships, 24-7. In 1974, with a 11-3 record, they lost to the Oakland Raiders in the divisional round of the playoffs. In 75, starting strong, Griese again fell to an injury, and the Dolphins finished with a respectable 10-4 record, but missed the playoffs despite that without their captain at the helm. In 1976, the Dolphins' record slipped to just 6-8, and then they suffered their first losing season under Don Shula. In 1977 was a rebound year for both Griese and the Dolphins. He decided to wear eyeglasses for the first time on the field, and it seemed to work out because the Dolphins finished the year with a 10-4 record, but again, it was not enough to get them into the playoffs. I mean, that's just crazy to think you have a 10-4 season and you're not even in the playoffs But that's how the playoff structure was back then. I mean, now a 10-4 record, obviously somebody wouldn't have a 10-4 record with the expansion of the weeks in the season, but it's just amazing to think that you have a 10-4 record and you're not even in the playoffs. Unfortunately, the following year, Griese tore ligaments in his knee in a preseason game. He was able to come back from that, but he never really was the same quarterback after those injuries. In 1979, he had some nagging leg injuries, and again, the Dolphins' record fell to 10-6, and they were pretty much knocked out of the playoffs by the Pittsburgh Steelers relatively quick. In 1980, Griese found himself in a backup role due to his injuries. However, he came off the bench many times, during that season, backing up the rookie quarterback that they had at the time. After the 1980 season, Griese decided to call it quits. After his playing career, he got into broadcasting, ABC Sports. His son, Brian Griese, would also go on to play for the Michigan Wolverines and also in the NFL for several seasons. Bob would continue to do his broadcasting career and still helps out to this day with the Miami Dolphins with their preseason and radio network type shows. Still is on the air according to his Wikipedia page. So Griese obviously is in the College Football Hall of Fame, the NFL Football Hall of Fame, and again goes down as one of the greatest quarterbacks ever to play the game. However, with his injuries, was not going to set all-time records like the Tom Brady's and the Joe Montanas of the world, but nobody but Bob Griese and part of the 1972 Dolphins can say that they were part of the undefeated team, because that still is a thing that has yet to be matched even to this day. So I want to thank you for taking the time to watch. I want to thank Mr. Griese for signing through the mail for me on my Domino's Pizza card. I also want to thank Mr. Moon for signing my tops, for a nominal fee. I didn't look, but I would guess that probably Warren has a card in the Domino Pizza set as well. It would make sense. I don't know why I decided not to send that, but maybe next time I'll send another $5 or $10 to Mr. Moon and ask him to sign the Domino's Pizza card if he's in that set. So I look forward to your comments below. I just wanted to share these great Hall of Famers with you coming up with the Super Bowl this Sunday. Thanks for taking the time to watch, and as always, happy collecting.